If I were to pick just one line that just screams Mayuri, it'd be this one.
本当にタイムマシン。
絶対に口外するなよ。
でも店長さんにまた怒られないかな。
Let's watch this one more time and really think about what's going on here.
絶対に口外するなよ。
Why does she do this? What exactly was she doing down there while moping over the loss of the microwave? Why is she gasping for air like she was drowning? What on earth is this supposed to be? Here's the thing. This should, but doesn't, feel unnatural. It's cute and quirky and random, and it completely cuts all of the tension that was building up in this scene, and it really doesn't feel like something Mayuri wouldn't do. I have an hour-long video on why the anime is objectively better than the visual novel, so I'm not going to draw your attention to every little difference, but this is the kind of thing I mean. This is something that doesn't actually make sense. It doesn't make sense on screen, and it definitely doesn't make sense in a script. It's not something you just write in. It's something inexplicable that might actually happen in real life. Steins Gate is so good because each of the characters feels completely real, and the anime perfectly understands who these characters are and has all these quirky little bits that make it feel not like a story, but like an actual group of idiots hanging out in a shitty apartment. And keep in mind, this is how this scene starts.
漆黒の炎をまといて我が望みを満たせ。
Yet whatever it is Mayuri is doing still doesn't feel out of place. And that's because she's supposed to be special. Remember this scene?
ジューシーから揚げナンバーワンワン。
少なくともバナナの房や冷凍唐揚げの時はテレポートしなかったんでしょ？
あれお客さん？
She sees a new person in the lab, and instead of being like,
I ain't no hollaback girl, go tell me who is that girl.
she starts counting to check whether or not there's the right number of people in the lab. And she includes herself in that number. It's the countless little details that you'd only really notice scrutinizing every single line of every single episode like some kind of lunatic, please like and subscribe, that makes Steins Gate and every single character so goddamn perfect. Like this.
でね、こっちが冷蔵庫。今日の中身は
Today. Hilarious. And this is the reason Okabe grabs Mayuri when the electrical discharge goes off.
そろそろいいんじゃないかな。
Sure, she's his childhood friend, but she's special. She's precious. She needs protecting. Kurisu, on the other hand, is the first one to realize that they're in danger and runs behind the wall when Okabe and Daru get knocked over by the explosion. I said in the first episode that every single character is a trope, but they're each subversions of that trope. This is what I mean. Mayuri is the pure, innocent girl, but she's interpreted in the only way that actually makes sense in the real world. Special. So, despite being a trope, she still feels like a real person. And that's because her character actually subverts itself one more time.
でも覗き見は悪いことなんだよね。
セルンの陰謀を暴くためだ。
それでも。
Mayuri says stuff like this because she doesn't understand what's going on. But the thing with Mayuri is that everything she says, despite her not understanding it, is actually true. And it's everyone else that's so caught up in everything about time and space and the universe that they miss the simple truth Mayuri shares.
星なんて見えないだろう。
あのね、お昼でもお星様はそこにあるんだよ。
So when she acts like a mom to the other members, it's this complete cycle of each of the roles. Mayuri is the one that needs to be protected, but paradoxically, she's also the wisest character in the show and the one that protects Okabe.
マユシーはね、オカリンを追いかけてたくさんの世界線のオカリンを探し続けてきたのです。
Mayuri doesn't understand any of the big brain stuff going on, and that's because Steins Gate is never about that. It's never about any of that. It's the everyday that matters. It's friendship that matters. And it's Mayuri's job to make sure that we never forget that.
マユリはずっと前からやめるべきだと思っていたのかもしれない。
実験に夢中だった私や岡部よりもあの子の方がいろいろ見えていたのかもね。
A lot of anime use cliched tropes, but this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's how they're used that matters, and Mayuri is so brilliant because she somehow completely subverts this trope while never straying outside its boundaries. I said in episode 1 that Mayuri is arguably the single most important character in the story, but after watching this again, I'm almost positive that she is. So, welcome back, friends, to my series analyzing every single episode of Steins Gate. Lately, we've been covering a lot of really dense shit, so before we go back to the serious stuff at the end of the episode, I want us to just take a sec to just think about some of the fun bits a little, like Suzuha and Mr. Braun. The Braun Tube Workshop sells CRTs, and only CRTs. It has no customers. Not like only a few customers. It has literally 0 customers.
またサボりか。
だってお店退屈なんだもん。することなくて。
Suzuha never does any work. The only thing she ever does is polish her bike and eavesdrop on the Future Gadget Laboratory. So then, why exactly does Mr. Braun need a part-timer? This is the closest we ever get to an answer.
ミスター・ブラウンは
誰？お父さんはミスター・ブラウン。ああ、店長なら出張サービス中。
Really? He's on a house call. The dude with literally 0 customers is on a house call. Yeah, no, I don't think so. This is literally never addressed in the show, but the best explanation I can come up with is that this is all a front for his job as a spy, and I appreciate that some things are just kind of left for us to figure out. So, moving on to the end of the episode, they complete a successful D-mail and everyone goes home. Everyone except Kurisu. Why? Partly because, as Okabe says, she's lonely staying at her fancy hotel with nothing to do all by herself but all the stuff that's in this doujinshi, and partly because she's worried about Okabe. Something's very clearly wrong with him, and you know, she likes him. And partly, again, because she thinks hanging out and wearing lab coats together is fucking cool. You'll notice that even though they've stopped doing experiments, she's still wearing it. Remember that pose? This is the reason she agreed to do this. She always wears the lab coat in the lab, even when they're just hanging out. But I think the main reason Kurisu stays behind is because she's curious. When Okabe says he'll explain everything later, to her, that's not good enough. She needs to know. When there's a loose thread in the universe, she can't just walk by and ignore it. She has to tug on it until it unravels. That's just the kind of person she is. That's why she says this.
どうしてもここにいたいのならば邪魔をせず静かにしているのだな、ザ・ゾンビ。
その呼び方が一番カチンとくる。
If Okabe not explaining the time machine is a little thread, what the fuck is her own death? It's the riddle of the universe sitting like a carrot in front of her face for her to chase and never ever catch. This is why she hasn't left. To hear this, she has to know something, anything. This is one of the most brilliant scenes in the story because the entire soul of it and every single character is wrapped up here with Okabe and Kurisu sitting alone in the lab and every single one of his friends emailing him in a friendship speedrun.
あ
This right here is what Steins Gate is really about.
じゃあね。
岡部にやけてる。
Next time, the episode you've all been waiting for is Ruka Trans. I actually talked about this briefly before in a Steins Gate Q&A video, but I took this opportunity to go way deeper than is probably necessary or even appropriate, so tune in even if you've seen that video. And, as always, thank you so much for your time, friends, and I will see you in the next video.